Hello and welcome to this new episode of Empathic Decisions. And today with me we have Richard Angrave from Node 4. Hello, Richard, and welcome.
Hi, Riccardo. Nice to see you again.
Likewise, and thank you very much for giving a bit of time from your schedule to participate in this nice session. So, as the first question, where do you come from, Richard?
Well, I live in Derbyshire, in England, and I know you're not there because I've just seen the beach background. But I live in a lovely little part of the Peak District, and yeah, I've been here for I think the best part of 20 years now. But I grew up in Leicester, in the UK, and this Subbuteo picture here is Leicester City Legends. But hopefully people won't hold that against me.
Lovely, lovely. You're right. I'm in sunny Barcelona today, and it's a very, very nice day. And very, very curious to dig deeper in your empathic experiences. And I know that you have been leading transformations across multiple acquired teams. So the first question is, how do you personally ensure that emotional alignment alongside the process alignment? How do you align your people?
Gosh, I think that's a really interesting question, and I suppose I've always felt that empathy is a really important part of decision making and alignment across teams. So it, the thing I think the things that I've read about empathy and the things that I've done is making sure that you, as a leader, understand how others feel when you are making decisions. And in terms of making sure that teams understand the direction of travel, the things that we're trying to do, the why we're trying to do them, but also placing yourself in team members' kind of shoes and thinking, actually, how is this decision going to feel to the members of the team and also outside of the team? Because transformation across multiple acquired teams can actually can feel like being done to rather than being done with. And I think that's where empathy comes in. How does this feel to individuals? And I suppose I want to take this chance to just quote someone, an American civil rights activist, Maya Angelou, who said she'd learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you'd done, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And it's a pretty famous quote, and I think it hits the nail on the head, actually. People don't forget how you made them feel. So, yeah, that's why I think it's important.
That's essential, and dealing with emotions is probably the most complex side of improving relations. And I really appreciate also your angle on having a shared purpose that motivate people to be part of an evolving culture. Let's dig deeper into a moment where empathy changed the outcome of a hard decision you had to communicate, either internally or with clients.
Um, I think quite a lot of hard decisions in transformation programs are about changes to either processes that people undertake in the day to day, or actually to the dates that you're going to do something, which can be quite, an emotive topic. For example, you can't go live that date because I'm on holiday, or, it can have quite quite a lot of emotion around it. And I think for me, there is an element of understanding how people feel, and there is also an element of looking at the building blocks of how you make a decision. So what's driving the need to, let's say, go live with a particular system? Have we got some legacy system that's running out of date? Are we replacing something? Is everything lined up? Has the testing worked? So I think trying to, again, back to my point about purpose, why are we doing something? So these are all the building blocks to the decision, and saying, I understand that this might not be the decision that is liked or you want, but actually we need to move forward and we need to move through this and kind of support people as we go forward. And I think in all of that, what I'm trying to explain is taking an approach using data to guide the decisions, but also how those data affect the way that people feel. So it's quite complex, I think, but I always try to be, I guess, quite rounded in my decision making, and explaining to people why we've taken a particular decision.
Yeah. The point you mentioned about change is essential, because we all know that people don't really like to change, and so when we need to explain them that change is on the line, we need to be very specific in explaining why it's important to do this. And this
Exactly.
connects to our next question, because this is definitely a moment in history where AI is changing everything. So in these moments where rapid AI adoption or tech change, how do you help your team feel safe enough to stay creative rather than defensive?
Yeah, and I mean, people who know me will know this is a topic that's close to my heart. I've recently studied with Imperial College on AI, also on sustainability, and that's, I guess, a conversation for another time. I've just published an article on that because I'm really interested on the intersection between those two things. But I guess to your point, one of the teams that is within my team is internal systems development, software engineering, and we've just implemented a tool that augments the capacity of our software engineers. For example, one of the team had to understand a particular tool that we've got, which is in a code base that wasn't their kind of natural go-to code base. They use the AI to help them to understand that tooling and then to rewrite in their language. And it was a process that they estimated would have taken about 2 weeks prior to AI, and it took 2 days. So, in terms of what's AI done and how do we make people feel kind of safe with it, in my mind, it is about augmenting the capacity. So the work that was 2 weeks long that took 2 days, in reality, that's probably work that people don't want to do. I.e., look at someone else's code, try and understand it, try and translate it into your new world code. Actually, the AI took away the heavy lifting there, and helped that person focus on the creative bit, programming in the new language, and actually getting the features out faster, which is kind of ultimately what I think development teams want. They want to be delivering the nice new features and getting them out to the business and to clients. So yeah, we've got real first-hand experience of that, and from my understanding, talking to the team, they really like the this particular piece of AI that they're using.
This is super interesting, and very happy to have another conversation on your academic research with the Imperial College, because also on our strategic storytelling model, we had a publication on the European Management Journal that proved that actually using empathy in decision making improves the decision quality up to 35%. And now we are launching a new academic study in order to measure the ROI of empathic leadership in partnership with an offsite villa in Tenerife that is willing to prove how well-being is actually a strong asset in order to take 1 year long strategic decisions with your leadership team. So definitely curious about what you have discovered in your research and how we might connect our knowledge in this space. Now,
Sounds good.
I want to ask you another question about the emotional side of leadership, and where do you see this emotional side of leadership being undervalued in private equity-based environments?
I suppose it's an interesting question. I am fortunate to work for an organisation in Node 4 that is backed by a private equity organisation. And to your point about well-being and making sure that decisions are made kind of empathetically, I think that's something that is really, really important. Now, I know that some equity organisations would probably, focus purely on the money. That's what private equity is about. That isn't what I see, and that's why I like working for the organisation that I do. Um, we have a lot of sustainability, for example, initiatives, and I think they they have been really, really key to some of the things that the organisation I work for are doing. So, electric vehicle schemes, buying Rego energy to power the data centres, and actually focusing on things that are much more about the kind of long term and looking after the people that work in the organisation, which is really, really important. I think there's a lot written about this, and it's a difficult question to answer because ultimately money is money. So, but I think there's a kind of balance to strike here, and I think that's what I try to do with the work that we do in transformation. It is important that we deliver to the kind of the projects that we've committed to, but it's also important that we do that in an emotionally intelligent way. So people who work with me will know I would never want to go live with something that doesn't work, because actually that creates more of a problem than actually what it's trying to solve. So I think creating that kind of balance of we have an investment, we need to, I don't know, bring multiple businesses together and align them onto a single system. However, that does need to work, and the people who are going to be using that system, it is important that they feel that it's going to work, that they feel that the right decision has been made, and that actually we've not got lots of kind of significant fix forward type issues. And this is not me saying that you don't have to take risks sometimes to go live with systems, because you do. But I think it's about calculating them, as I was saying earlier on, about having the data that leads you to a decision. But I think that's the same whether it is private equity or just family-owned business or PLC. Like, it's, in my mind, the important thing is making sure that yes, there's an investment decision. Yes, there is a new system or process to implement, but it has to be correct, and you have to take account of the way that people feel. So I think it's a difficult balance to achieve, but I think it's one that that I always try to, and I think we, as a general rule, we get it right. So yeah, really enjoying what I do around that. So it's good.
I particularly appreciate your angle in describing what you see in an environment that is uh, money and profit oriented, because this is a very interesting learning I got from windsurfing. You go where you point your eyes to. So it's really essential to focus on what you are getting from this kind of value, and having the chance to ideally focus on the people, planet, profit, prioritization in business is the way to go. So
I think
very interesting.
I've always been really interested in like balanced scorecards, and the balanced approach to uh, like performance managing an organization. And that is a tool that has stood the test of time. It was first published in Harvard Business Review in 1991, and to this day, organizations are still using it because the four different lenses give you uh, not just the money angle, but the people angle, the process angle, the client angle. Like, how is my organization living and breathing across those four different perspectives, as Kaplan and Norton called it. So yeah, for me, it's always been important to have that balance.
And specifically about this kind of balance, I'm curious about when you are aligning different teams or legacy systems, what tends to break down first? Communication, trust, clarity, or purpose?
Gosh, that's a really good question. Yeah, difficult to answer that, because I think they are really sort of interlinked. In my mind, the clarity of purpose is the thing that if you don't get it right, then other things won't follow. So, why are we delivering a particular project? And I genuinely mean the kind of why. I don't just mean because we've got to turn these other systems off, but what's the actual driver for it? Is it so that we can all join together and have one way of doing things, and actually we then understand more about, let's say, the different organisations that have joined together as part of M&A activity. Let's say that as the example. So that becomes the purpose rather than turning the other systems off and the value that might bring in terms of cash value. I think if it becomes just about those things and you don't focus on the purpose of what you're trying to achieve and the team's trusting you to do that, then communication breaks down because trust and communication, in my mind, are hand in hand. And a colleague of mine shared a LinkedIn post about, what are the top 5 tips, I think, for kind of supercharging transformation. And I replied around sort of, I think, clarity of purpose and making sure that, everybody's aligned and they understand, like, culturally, why are we doing what we're doing. So for me, it's probably that. But they are all really important, and if any of them break down, you have a real challenge.
Yep, yep. A very good and strong North Star is always the light that shines, especially in dark moments, right, where things are not evolving at the right pace or at the right cross collaboration environment. So yeah, it's so important to have a common purpose. And now talking a bit more about decisions, I'm curious what does a great decision look like to you inside a transformation program, and how do you know when it's been made well?
I suppose I've alluded to some of this throughout the chat. In my mind, it's based on information, based on data. So, for example, is generally the programs that I've worked on have been like digital transformation. So they have been enabled by implementing a piece of technology, and that then changing the business processes and the way in which things are done. So for me, it's about, is the system built? Has it been tested? Do the right teams know what they're going to do? So what does their to be look like? Because they only know their as is world, and actually it's the program's responsibility to say, this is how it did work, this is how it's going to work. Are we ready to go? Is everything set? Have we done the communications? Has all the business change work happened? Training. So you've got a lot of, for me, pieces of the jigsaw to making big decisions in transformation programs. So there's clearly the budget angle, there's the project management, there's all the governance around it, because these are big programs of work that have a lot of change impact, and I think it's really important that you use all the data that you've got to guide the right decision. I think bringing it back to kind of emotional intelligence and empathy again. How do I? And sometimes you can't account for gut feeling, and it's not a phrase that I kind of like to use that often, because I as people will know, but my career I've spent in kind of business intelligence, data, then into transformation. So I really like to feel that it's right based on data, but sometimes you can't ignore that feeling of gut feel that people talk about. And I know there's been some research around the connection between the gut and the brain, and actually that gut feeling is your brain actually saying something's not quite right here. So yeah, decision based on data, but also with a little bit of, does this feel right based on my experience? So
Data driven is definitely the way to go, and that's why also we have developed this emotionless radar that I saw you experimented in order to measure these 5 layers of wisdom we have defined that are awareness, purpose, clarity, value, and focus, that gives you an overview about where there might be gaps in the strategic and emotional development of your team. And also we have this general health indicator that provides the amount of psychological safety you have inside the team, which is essential to let everybody speak out loud what they think.
I'm
And
completely with you on that. We have to create an environment where people feel really able to speak up about risks and issues that they see and experience on a project. And I hope that the teams that work for me really feel that they can do that, because I would much rather know that something is going wrong or something is at risk of going wrong than for it to go wrong and to find out afterwards. Like that is really important to me, and I guess that's around that kind of trust and open communication that you want within a team. So, yeah.
that's amazing, Richard. So it's been a very nice chat up until now. I'm really curious to give you the last question of our interview, but I'm mindful of time, so I don't know if you have space for replying to the last question.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Amazing. So my last question for you is, if you had a blank canvas to design one moment of strategic alignment for your leadership team this year, what would you focus on and why?
A totally blank canvas. I think I'd probably be talking in AI and sustainability terms if it was totally blank canvas. I think given where the world is at in terms of AI and using it, and the benefits that I've seen in my team in particular, and that we're starting to see, I guess, across our lives. It is kind of a transformational moment, if you like, to be using AI to do various things. And I suppose I'm plugging my article that I wrote yesterday here, but we need to point the AI at itself and say, how can you, AI, make yourself as net zero and as water positive as possible, whilst we're consuming lots of energy for you to help us, AI. And I'm conscious I'm speaking like AI as a human being, which is a really strange thing in my head. But that for me is, if we can solve that conundrum, I think fueling the kind of AI revolution, let's call it, is actually much easier. Now I know, having studied it, there's lots of things to consider around ethics and how it's used, and there's loads of things in the media around that. So I'm not for a second discounting those things, and I think you have to use it, as I said, to augment our human capacity, because we need to be the ones that are steering it and that are in control of it. So like I was saying, point it at the problem and say, how do you make data centers more efficient so that we can use more of them to inform our AI? We're pointing that. It's our creativity doing that. So we're not taking that human creativity away. We're actually using the AI to go away and look at all the various literature. I think it's really powerful what it can do to help us. but it's about augmentation and not replacement for me, and that's my that's my blank canvas moment, I guess. Good question though.
I'm happy to say that you are definitely aligned with the keywords used by the World Economic Forum that says that for 2030, the most important skills in the workforce will be number one, AI, number two, cybersecurity, number three, tech literacy, and number four, creative thinking. So you
Yeah,
definitely mix the top important topics for the next 5 years. And that's amazing.
good.
So, Richard, it was a very interesting conversation, and I'm so grateful that I had the chance to hear the views of an integration and transformation director at a very nice enterprise like Node 4. Thank you again very much for giving us the time, and it was very nice to get your insights at what I will do with your insights and the other people that give a bit of time to participate in this project. I will summarize all the insights from leaders like you, and I will share these insights so we can learn from different experiences and different angles.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you again, Richard. Thank you very much, and see you around.
Yes, thank you.